My name is Alia Bennett. Or at least, that's what I thought. The message came in on a Thursday evening while I was inhaling cold leftover pasta from the hospital cafeteria. No. Hi. No, hope you're well. Just this. Dinner at Vincenzo's. 7 p.m. Big news to share. It was from my mom, Carol. Sent through the family group chat. I hadn't seen a message in since Christmas. The Bennetts, she'd named it, with a crown emoji next to it, like we were some kind of dynasty. But we weren't royalty. We weren't even particularly close. We were fragments, held together by holiday traditions, strained politeness, and a refusal to address anything real. I stared at the message, thumb hovering, typing, deleting, typing again. Finally, I sent one word. Okay. No emoji. No question mark. I didn't want to seem too eager. But I was. You don't get summoned by the family that spent 30 years forgetting you unless something seismic is about to drop. And maybe, just maybe, this was it. The moment I'd be seen. Not as the quiet one. Not as the afterthought. Not as the nurse who always shows up, even when no one notices. Maybe this time, I would be the big news. I worked late that night, as usual. Graveyard shift at St. Luke's ER, my second double that week. I was the go-to-night nurse. Quiet, efficient, dependable. A ghost in scrubs. No one really knew me at work, but they trusted me with what mattered. Blood, life, death. I didn't go home to change. I didn't have time. I drove straight to Vincenzo's, the old Italian place we used for birthdays and grief. My hair was pulled back, my face bare, my sneakers squeaking faintly as I walked through the polished lobby. The hostess smiled. Private room in the back. Of course. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Time stopped. There they were. The full Bennett collection. Carol, in a sleek black dress that practically screamed I have control issues. Dad, Richard, perched in his usual spot near the wall, posture ramrod straight. He looked like a man who'd rather be somewhere else. Emily, my younger sister, was laughing at something on her phone, her perfect teeth gleaming like she was in a toothpaste ad. And Grandpa Henry, sitting at the head of a table, spine slightly bowed but gaze razor-sharp. They looked up. No one stood. No one rushed over. Carol raised her glass. Great, you made it. Emily smirked. Still in your scrubs? I nodded. Just got off work. Silence settled. Not awkward. Not cruel. Just expected. Like I was the neighbor's kid they'd agreed to feed while her parents were away. A waiter appeared, sliding a chair to the edge of the table. No one made room. I sat anyway. Then I saw it, hanging above the table, glittering gold on white satin. Welcome home, our real daughter. I blinked. Once. Twice. Surely this was a joke. But no one laughed. Instead, they smiled like something had finally been set right. And just like that, my entire life shifted, quietly, cruelly, and without warning. I stared at that banner like it had teeth. Welcome home, our real daughter. The words pulsed in my head. Unreal. Shiny. Mean. At first, I thought it was some elaborate joke. Emily had pulled stunts before. Once she made fake wedding invitations for her own birthday just to see who'd show up. But this wasn't her usual brand of drama. They were all too calm. Too proud. Emily leaned forward like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. She held up a crisp piece of paper, the kind that comes from a printer you only use when something matters. So, she said, bright-eyed, I took one of those DNA kits. She said it like she was announcing a new purse or a vacation. Like this was fun. Just for fun, you know? Thought I'd trace the family tree, see if we were descended from pirates or something. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. She paused. Of course she did. Emily never gave anything away without theatrics. But when the results came back, well, she grinned, triumphant. Turns out I'm not adopted. I'm 100% Bennett blood. Mom and Dad, all mine. Fully, completely mine. The table erupted in applause. Literal applause. Richard clapped with that slow, deliberate rhythm like he was closing a boardroom deal. Carol dabbed at the corner of her eye with a linen napkin, pretending this was all just so touching. Even Grandpa Henry gave a tiny nod, though something flickered behind his eyes. Something I couldn't name yet. I sat frozen, a single question rising like smoke from a fire. What does that mean about me? I forced my voice out. And me. They went silent. Carol turned to me slowly. Her smile was soft, practiced. Politician soft. Sweetheart, you were part of the same process. Back then, the clinic didn't always give detailed information. We used 2 embryos. One was from us. The other. She hesitated, like the next word had thorns. Emily cut in, her voice bright and cruel. There was a mix-up. You're not ours. She laughed. Laughed. I felt the air leave my body, like being punched in the chest with a velvet glove. Emily shrugged. You were a donor embryo, but Mom couldn't bear to let you go. She said it would feel wrong, so they brought you home instead. Carol placed a hand on her wine glass. You're still family, she said, like someone offering leftovers after the party was over. My throat burned. My hands were ice. Emily held up her phone. Look, my results even show how much Neanderthal DNA I have. Isn't that hilarious? More laughter. A roar of warmth that didn't touch me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another shift reminder from work. I stood. I need air. No one stopped me. No one said my name. I stepped outside into the night, the cold biting through my thin scrubs. My breath came out shaky, ghost white. That's when a waiter appeared behind me. He held out a cream envelope. This was left for you, he said. My name was written on the front in elegant cursive. Alia Bennett. But as I turned it over in my hands, I knew. This envelope didn't come from them. This wasn't part of their show. This was meant for me. I stood under the street lamp outside Vincenzo's, the night air slicing through my scrubs, and stared at the envelope. It was thick, expensive stationery, cream-colored with a faint texture. My name was written in dark ink, the handwriting careful, old-fashioned. Familiar. Alia Bennett. But something about it, about the way it was handed to me without a word, without fanfare, told me it didn't come from Carol or Richard. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet, folded in thirds. The same handwriting covered the page in tight, deliberate strokes. And as soon as I saw the first line, I knew. Grandpa Henry. Alia, if you're reading this, it means they finally told you. Or worse, they told you just enough to hurt you, but not enough to heal. I've waited decades for this day. You were never meant to grow up in that house. Your mother, your real mother, was my daughter. Her name was Lena Hartman. She was brilliant, brave, full of fire. She wanted you more than anything. But she died giving birth to you. Complications no one could predict. No one to blame. Afterward, Carol stepped in. She said she wanted to give you a home. She made it sound noble. I believed her. I was wrong. Carol didn't take you because she loved you. She took you because she couldn't bear the thought of Lena leaving behind a child more perfect than any she could create. Lena was everything Carol tried to be. When she passed, Carol saw her chance. I tried to stay close. I kept photos, notes, memories, every piece of Lena I could salvage. But Carol shut me out, said it was confusing for you. It wasn't confusion. It was truth. Tonight, they chose a performance over love, but someone still remembers what you are. You were Lena's daughter. You were wanted. You were chosen. You were loved, deeply, fiercely, entirely. Come see me. I'll tell you everything. Love always. Grandpa Henry. I stood frozen, the letter fluttering in my hands. Lena. Her name echoed in my head like a bell rung far away. I had a mother. Not just a title, a name. A life. A history. Someone who sang to me before I was born. Someone who fought for me until her last breath. Not Carol. Not the woman who turned my life into a charity project. Not the family that applauded my exile like it was a graduation speech. I sat on the bench just outside the restaurant and wept. Not the messy, shoulder-shaking kind. Not yet. These tears were quiet, ancient, like they'd been waiting 30 years to fall. And in that moment, beneath the restaurant's buzzing neon sign and the stink of garlic and gasoline, something inside me shifted. I hadn't been abandoned. I hadn't been forgotten. I'd been stolen. But now I had a name. Lena Hartman. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to find out who I really was. I didn't drive home. I couldn't. Home didn't feel like a place anymore. Not the apartment I rented. Not the childhood house where no one ever made room for me at the table. So I drove to Grandpa Henry's. The streets were quiet. Every red light felt like a dare to turn back, to forget what I'd read, to pretend none of it was real. But I didn't. 15 minutes later, I was pulling into his driveway. His porch light was on, like he'd been waiting. When I stepped out of the car, he was already on the porch, hands tucked into the sleeves of a cardigan I remembered from my childhood. Navy blue, worn at the elbows. He stood slowly, opened his arms, and I went to him like I had as a child, only this time I didn't stop halfway. He wrapped me up in the kind of hug that made you feel like a person worth holding on to. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, and I felt his voice more than heard it. We didn't speak again until we were inside, seated in his warm, lemon-polished living room. I used to come here after school some days, when I was too quiet for Carol or too clingy for Richard. Grandpa never said I talked too little. He just handed me a cookie and asked about my day like it mattered. Now, he poured me tea with shaking hands, then disappeared down the hall. When he returned, he carried a wooden box. He set it on the coffee table and opened it slowly, like it held something sacred. Inside were journals, letters, drawings, concert programs, a hospital bracelet, tiny and worn, a pair of ballet slippers no bigger than my hand, a silver chain with a star pendant, and photos of a woman with my eyes and my hair. Lena. She was radiant. Her smile lit up every picture. In one, she was mid-laugh, clutching a guitar to her chest. In another, she stood in a classroom surrounded by kids. One photo showed her pregnant, cradling her belly with pride. "She was beautiful," I whispered. "She was everything," he said. He handed me a pink journal, soft and worn around the edges. "She wrote this while she was pregnant with you. She called you Little Star." My fingers trembled as I opened it. "Dear Little Star, today I sang to you for the first time. You kicked right after. I think you liked it. I can't wait to meet you. I already love you more than I thought possible. You're going to change the world. I just know it." I couldn't stop the tears then. They came hard and fast, racking my chest like a flood that had waited too long to break free. This woman, my mother, had known me before I existed, loved me before I breathed. She didn't give me up. She gave everything to bring me here. Not Carol. Not the woman who raised me like I was a ghost. I looked up at Grandpa Henry, my voice hoarse. "I want to know everything." He smiled, eyes glassy with memory and regret. "Then let's begin." I stayed at Grandpa Henry's that night. We talked until the sky turned from indigo to gold. At first, it was halting. Names, moments, years lost to silence. Then it flowed, like a dam had broken, and all the things that had been kept from me came rushing in. He told me stories about Lena, how she once convinced her entire high school choir to sing a Beatles song during the holiday concert, how she could never make it through a sad movie without crying, how she picked my name from a book of constellations. "She said you were her little constellation of hope," he told me, eyes misty. "Said she'd gone through so much just to have you." That night, I saw my mother not as a shadow or a symbol, but as a woman. A full, living, breathing woman with dreams and flaws and courage. Someone who had fought to bring me into the world and lost everything in the process. It was the first time I truly felt like someone's daughter. The next day, I stood in Lena's old bedroom, still preserved in Henry's house like a time capsule. The walls were painted soft lavender. Her violin hung near the window, sunlight catching the polished wood. Books lined the shelves, worn and well-loved. Her music notebooks were still there, bars of melodies she had composed in her own hand, little notes scribbled in the margins. Too sad add warmth. "Feels like hope here." I sat on the bed and picked up one of the journals again. "Little Star, if you're reading this someday, it means I didn't get to tell you myself. Please know I fought for you. I wanted you more than anything in this world. You were never an accident. You were my purpose." I closed the journal and placed it gently on the bed beside me. I sat there a long time thinking. I wasn't a mistake. I wasn't the leftover, or the wrong embryo, or the family's secret they forgot to bury. I was the dream Lena died for. That afternoon, I walked into the courthouse and filed the paperwork to legally change my name. From Alia Bennett to Alia Hartman. The clerk didn't ask questions. She just stamped the form, handed it back, and smiled like it was just another Tuesday. But for me, it was everything. When I signed it for the first time, I cried. Not out of pain, but recognition. This was who I'd always been. It just took 30 years to find my way back. I moved into Grandpa Henry's house temporarily. He insisted. Said Lena would have wanted me to have a place where I could feel whole again. Every day, I uncovered something new. Her old sketchbooks, her sheet music, a scarf that still faintly smelled like her perfume. I started learning her songs, clumsy at first, but with each note, something inside me steadied. Music became the thread tying us together. At work, I changed too. I smiled more. I slowed down. I started mentoring the new nurses, telling them stories, asking about their lives. I stopped being a ghost. I carried a small photo of Lena in my badge holder. Not for anyone else, for me. Not as a reminder of what I lost, but of what I finally found. It's funny how silence can be louder than any scream. After I changed my name, I expected a storm. A phone call. A guilt trip. Some kind of fight for control. But all I got was silence. Carol didn't call. Richard didn't write. Emily sent a few messages. One read, "I didn't realize it would affect you like that." I stared at it for a long time, trying to decide if it was ignorance or cruelty. Maybe both. I never replied. I used to crave their approval like oxygen. I wanted them to see me, to love me, to choose me. But now, with every quiet day that passed, I realized something. I didn't miss them. Not really. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't orbiting a family that never saw me. I had landed somewhere real. Grandpa Henry became my anchor. We settled into a quiet rhythm. Sunday breakfast with coffee and records. Afternoons spent going through Lena's things, her journals, her keepsakes, her life. Every drawer revealed a new piece of her. Every photograph filled in a blank space I'd carried for decades. And then there were Lena's friends. After hearing my story, Henry reached out to a few of them. One by one, they came. A woman named Sylvia who taught music with Lena at the community center. A man named Joel who once played guitar with her in a college band. Even Lena's old roommate, Dana, who brought a scrapbook and cried when she saw me. "You have her eyes," she whispered. "God, she would have been so proud of you." We sat at the kitchen table, flipping through pages filled with memories I had never lived but somehow felt connected to. It was like finding pieces of myself scattered across their stories, little echoes of who I was always meant to be. This was my family, not tied by blood alone, but by truth, by choice, by love. At the hospital, things shifted too. I carried Lena's name on my badge now, Alia Hartman, RN. Some coworkers noticed, some asked. But I never gave the whole story, just enough to let them know I had reclaimed something that had always been mine. I found myself mentoring more, teaching students, telling them not just how to care for patients, but how to see them, how to listen, how to stand in the quiet moments and be present. Because I knew now, being seen is everything. I stopped hiding my music. I started playing at open mics. Simple songs at first, mostly Lena's. I felt her there in the chords, in the hush of the crowd, in the feeling that I was finally whole. One night, after a small performance, someone asked, "Who taught you to play like that?" I smiled. "My mother." Family isn't about blood. It's about who sees you when the world refuses to look. It's who reaches out in your darkest moment, not to fix you, but to say, "I see you. You matter." If you've ever felt like a ghost in your own life, let me say this. You're not broken. You're not less. You're not alone. Walk away if you need to. You're not leaving family behind. You're walking toward the one you were meant to find.